All right. All right. Welcome. How's it going, everyone? Perfect.
Hey,
Okay.
hi
Hi
guys.
there. Welcome. Um, quick call out, and thank you, Emilius, for calling this up. But there was a time zone discrepancy. But the Luma invite is correct, and we are live. But just as a heads up, it was listed for 3 p.m. Eastern time. But otherwise, we can go ahead and proceed. We've got some folks in the chat already, uh, tuning in from YouTube and on Twitter. And I'll just do a quick intro and then I'll dish it off to the Reactive Network team. This is going to be a really exciting session. Reactive Network is a sponsor of UHI 8. So they are currently running workshops within UHI 8, as well as today's public event that is broadcasted to our larger community of builders and UHI alumni. But my name is Annalisa. I'm with the Atrium team, and I will go ahead and dish it off to Ronkai and Emilius to handle your intros.
Thank you so much, Anissa. So, thank you everyone for joining in, and even for those who will watch this after this live stream. Thank you for sort of dropping in and trying to understand more about Reactive Network. So, my name is Ronkai. You can just call me Kai. I'm the CEO of Reactive Network, and here with me today is Emilius as well. He is the head of ecosystems. So how we do this today will be I'll run through probably about 15 minutes, a short deck of slides, really just explain about what are we, what do we do, what problem statements we solve, so then how do we use this kind of in building on blockchain. And then after that, Emilius will run through a short demo, and from there we can take questions. So if everything's okay, thank you so much. I will just jump into the slides and sort of explain what's reactive and why is this actually very useful for whether you're a developer or a company building on Web3. Why don't you use reactive instead rather than the kind of typical way of doing things on Web3? So Reactive Network, we are the interoperable execution layer of blockchain. What does this mean? It means that we are basically a data execution layer for, well, across different blockchains. If you need to do something across blockchain B to C to E, and we can actually make all of that happen together. Or even if you're building something just on a single blockchain and you need a data execution, there is the old way of doing things, and we're doing it actually for the first time ever completely on-chain. And why is this important? I'll share more with you. So whether you're an experienced Web3 developer or not, this is something that is probably very familiar with you. If you're building on Web2, you just deploy the code, it reacts to changes in the states directly, and the code performs the functions, and it goes to the applications. Very straightforward. But on Web3, you cannot do that. This is because code deployed on smart contract on chain is a smart contract. Smart contracts themselves, they don't respond to on-chain events. They only respond to states of your wallet, states of the amount of a certain sort of gas or certain crypto assets somewhere else, and they cannot take the data. They cannot respond across the blockchains on chain. So what do people do? Because if you're a developer or a business and you're building something on chain, you still need to automate things, right? You cannot hire a team of 100 developers 24/7 worldwide, constantly clicking to execute. It needs to be automated. The system needs to see things, and okay, if this thing happens, a lot of it is business logic behind the scenes. And so right now, 2025, let's put it that way, before we came about, blockchain data has to be taken off chain and standardized. The standardized data basically is indexed. Then it will be fed to a Web2 base code so that the Web2 base code can actually understand what's going on the blockchain. And then it will respond to the data and it will perform a function by reconnecting back on the Web3 node. Then the smart contract itself will execute. A lot of people say, oh, I just deploy a bot. I just deploy something to observe what's going on blockchain, I'll respond very quickly. That's basically it. That is the flow. That is basically how businesses get things done. But if you want mass adoption or you want a developmental process feels as seamless as Web2, this doesn't make sense. The reason is because each time you want to change one thing, you want to update your platform, you don't even need a major upgrade. You want a version 1 to a version 1.01. You don't just need to change one architecture, you need to change multiple architecture. I'll explain it a little bit more. So because we see this as a huge gap, it doesn't make sense. There's multiple points of failures, there's high cost of setup and maintenance, just to make sure this whole thing works from a business standpoint. Again, whatever we built on blockchain, and I'm sure most of you agree, if you're trying to build a use case, you want people to use it, you want other businesses to use it, you want to use blockchain, you want to use certain parts as off-chain, that's okay. But at the end of the day, it must be a business. It must be profitable, and it must, I think from user experience, it must make a lot of sense. But for it to basically, especially on a business front, if you're trying to upgrade something, you want to put in new functions, you want to change old functions, you don't just change one part. You realize that in the old way of doing things, you need to change multiple parts as well. You need to change the data storage sometimes. You need to change definitely the indexer. Maybe now you need to look out for different types of events. Maybe you integrate a new blockchain, and now the indexer needs to sort of sort everything out into a standardized, homogenized kind of output so that the external code can even understand that. Maybe you want an external code to now look out for different types of events as well. And you need to change the external code. And then you need to change everything before that. You need to change the data synchronization and so on. Everything is a very long and tedious process. It's calculated in months. That's also why Uniswap, after so many years, is still a version 4. Why shouldn't it be version 20? But through us, you can. It's very straightforward. It's on-chain observation and interaction between blockchains and between dApps, basically through reactive smart contracts. Let me explain, of course, more to you. How does this work? Is this so magical? We do it in such a way as basically to just push on a push basis events from different blockchains to us. And if you deploy a code on us, it will observe the live events. And the code on us is a smart contract, right? And since on us, it can observe live events, can retrieve histories, it can compute data, then we call it a reactive contract, so to speak. The reactive contract can see it. The reactive contract can execute it. It can basically do if this and that. Why wasn't this done? If it's so important, why wasn't this done a long time ago? So we actually asked Vitalik on stage in Singapore last year, like, this was in the white paper. You must be able to publish and subscribe to events. But they never did subscription. Basically, this is subscription, what we did. Because if you can see the events, you kind of subscribe to it, and then you can kind of react to it. So why wasn't this done? The long story short, from his answer is basically he found that he and his team, because he wasn't just a single person's effort, but he and his team and open source development, they found that if you include it at the base blockchain layer, there's too many dependencies on external kind of events, external things happening. And if that's the case, they were worried back in 2015, 2016 about the integrity of the blockchain. And so they decided to do away with it and say, let the higher layers, people building on top of it, let them sort it out. And essentially that's what we did. We could have built it basically as a layer 1 even. But then we found that the most value to users, and our users are developers and businesses, the most value comes when you guys are using it already on existing chains that you guys are on. Existing platforms, existing use cases. And for the longest time, you're just pulling data off chain and then come back on chain again. But now you just need to deploy a smart contract written in Solidity. It can see everything. It basically acts as an auxiliary smart contracts to whatever that you're building on the various different blockchains. So we solve all the problems about liquidity. We solve all the problems about communications across blockchains. And the best thing is it's also an on-chain architecture, and the whole thing works seamlessly. just very briefly, this is how the architecture looks like. The bottom part about Solana, Sui, other non-EVMs, these are basically the future. It's coming. Right now, we are only limited to EVMs, but basically there's sequencer and there's GEF, and basically it works in such a way as to, again, if you see actually some of the arrows, push basis, it sequence, it properly sort of tells what sort of data it is. And if you build basically a smart contract on us, you can see it can react. I'm not going to go too deep into this. I think at the end of the day, the technical details, you can look at it from our documentations. Emilius, my colleague, later he will do a very good demo as well, so to see it in action, what's this whole thing all about. And at the end of the day, what we want people to know is that, okay, now this is live, this is possible, and I can use this to build. It's not just about building. You can use this to build existing technology, but eventually when your build cycle's a lot faster, you can also start asking yourself, okay, how do I build new things that no one has attempted before? One of the biggest building blocks is really experimentations. And I'm not even talking about just doing things on testnet and then putting it on the mainnet, right? But it's really this entire cycle. It's not just about the smart contracts, but everything after that and how this whole thing flows. You change one small thing and you change 10 things, and you change 6 things, and you change X amount of small elements, and that cycle takes too long. But if you can do it basically almost as a Web2 build experience, then your platform can improve in a matter of days, weeks, and so on. I'm going to talk a little bit about use cases. So what we have here are basically, none of these are basically dream of ours. They are real use cases that are basically out there that people use on us. It goes from DEXs with hook-like functionalities. Actually, that's basically what you guys are here for. Streamlining buybacks, auto adjustments of LP positions, lending platforms as well, liquidation protection. I think that is very exciting because in October, the crypto market kind of had a meltdown, right? There's a lot of theories, a lot of hypotheses, a lot of rumors about why it happened. But the fact of the matter is that when there are enough basically options on either side of the table, whether you're going long or going short, and when people have enough liquidity and buying power to kind of affect this whole system, there's nothing stopping them from kind of trying to crash this house. And one way to really do it pretty in a manageable way is kind of liquidation protection. If you deploy certain things, if you lend certain things, if you borrow certain things, especially if it's on-chain, is there a possible way for you to kind of put in conditions for there to be liquidation protection? And that's something that we found that with Reactive smart contracts, you can. There's other use cases as well, DAOs, launchpads, where there's automated implementation, automated issuance. Actually, that's something that is kind of low-hanging fruit already, and people are using it. But there's like SocialFi, GainFi, UX enhancements. At the end of the day, if you look across all the different use cases, I think a very common theme is not just making life easier for developers, but it's making life easier for the users of the developers' platforms. Things that are automated, things that are faster, things that are better UX, one-step swap, etc. Things that basically provide value, liquidation protection, auto adjustments, etc. Things that doesn't need a human to kind of constantly monitor. And if you try to deploy a bot to try to get it to monitor for you anyway, at the end of the day, it's also going off-chain and on-chain. And the situation on the market changes all the time, right? Bots do fail. Bots cannot respond, and so on when the situation has changed. And it involves a lot of work. It involves people who are technically sound, who knows how to address it. And for the vast majority of users on Web3, they are not. So how do you make it such a point where it's very easy for people to enter the space? And this is where we change the game. So this is kind of a very important slide for you guys in the hackathon. So right now, Reactive smart contracts, we are the first step, and we've been around for about 10 months now. We're going way beyond that. We open the options for faster build cycle, more organic smart contracts, etc. And what does this mean for academia, for example, or for you guys building, was design considerations to allow a usable, decentralized reactive setup from the blockchain trilemma. If that is, I think, at the core of even if you're just building a simple debt, it's still at the core of it. What are compromises that you need to put in? And using reactive can this sort of change the game that you need to do? At the end of the day, a lot of people say that I would say the industry talks about decentralization, but they pay a bit of lip service, right? Because they very often, vast majority of businesses, they use very centralized solutions because business is business. They just, as long as it works, they're not too concerned about that. But I think it introduced a lot of risks. A lot of is from a risk sort of management perspective, and very often in terms of cost perspective. If you just look purely from those perspective, then we shouldn't ignore the blockchain trilemma. It's the same for institutions as well. Where more decentralized infrastructure be favored. I think that is increasingly coming as well. And I think as you guys build your own ideas, whether it's purely kind of for bounties, purely to try things out, or eventually you have an idea, you want to build something using Uniswap hooks, using Reactive, etc. How does this contribute better value for bigger players? Well, why do I talk about bigger players? That's also where a vast majority of the money is. And that's something, if you're running a business and you're trying to get something off the ground, you cannot ignore that. So with that, this is my last slide. I'm just going to leave this on screen for about 30 seconds. Of course, you guys already know about the hackathon. We have a few other things as well. We have a dev fund. You can come apply with projects for grants up to 10K. Happy to join in. And then after that, there's ongoing Web3 internship bootcamp as well. It's in Chinese though. It's something we are collaborating with Eve Panda. But if you guys are interested, feel free to scan any of the QR codes on screen. And with that, that's all.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ronkai. And up next, we do have Emilius to be running a demo. So Emilius, go ahead and take it away and I'll share your screen.
Yeah, thank you, Annalisa, and
No
hey,
problem.
everybody. So 1 second, let me just pop up my screen real quick. It should be visible right now, is it?
Yep, perfect. And just for the audience, as we do go along, we will have time for Q&A afterwards. So any questions, feel free to ping the chat and I'll bring them on stage if you had any questions during Ronkai's presentation or throughout this demo as well. And
yeah, so going back to what Ronkai said, basically Reactive is this on-chain, events-driven, if this then that layer. So we're our own standalone layer 1, but we're not the general purpose layer 1. We're only meant to facilitate either interchain or cross-chain workflows that are event-driven. In other words, we can say that Reactive Network makes event logs actionable, right? And how is it achieved? It's done through the concept of a reactive smart contract. Now, reactive smart contracts are very much similar to your typical Solidity contracts that you're so familiar with. They just have one difference. They execute logic not when directly called by a user, but once there's some event happening on the blockchain. So in a typical workload, you have like 3 points, right? You have your origin contract, which will emit some event. You have a reactive contract that is interested in this particular event. And inside of the reactive contract, you can also execute Solidity-based logic just like you normally would. And then you have a destination contract, which will be called after the execution on the reactive network has been executed. And that's pretty much how the whole flow looks like. And in this case, I just want to basically guide you to show how and where you can find more information, and basically what can we be done with our docs and some of the initial guides. So if you go ahead on our webpage, which is reactive.network, top of the webpage, you'll see docs. Pretty proud of those docs, to be honest. I think you'll like it if you spend some time to check it out. Kudos to our the real team for coming up with this. But basically, on the left side of this, you'll see demos. And on the very first paragraph, you'll see the pretty much the overview and Reactive Network basic demo. And it's a super simple workflow showcasing what's actually doable in a very high level and how the whole flow works. So if you click on this link, it will send you to GitHub. And here, basically, the whole demo is outlined. And I can quickly run you through the whole thing. But just like I said in the introduction, the whole flow consists of 3 contracts. You have the layer 1 contract, which is deployed on some chain, let's say Sepolia, Ethereum, or some other chain. You have a reactive contract, and you have a callback contract. So if we take a look into the, let's call this a origin contract, it's a super simple contract that's only meant to receive some funds, send those funds back to the sender, and emit an event, which is obviously a received event, right? So super simple contract. As you can see, nothing else is in there. Now, the purpose of a reactive contract is to listen to this particular received event. And once you send your funds to this contract and that received event has been emitted, reactive contract will catch that and will call back this third contract, which, as you can see, is also not related to the first contract in any way. And once Reactive Network calls this contract, this callback contract will also emit an event which says callback received, showcasing how 2 completely unrelated contracts can talk to each other now because of a reactive contract based on some event. And that's a very simple explanation, but a lot more complex stuff can be built using these concepts. So with that said, I think it would be pretty interesting for me to show you what's already out there and that you can already play around with. And one of the cool apps that is deployed on the Reactive Network is called Reactify. It's a very light app, but the purpose of it and the use case that it solves right now is it enables stop orders on top of Uniswap v2 pools, right? Obviously, v4 of Uniswap now already has the stop order functionality, right? But then in order to come up with this, they had to introduce a whole different code base. And using a reactive contract, you can execute a stop order fully on-chain autonomous order without using any centralized exchange, using such an app. So I want to kind of lead you through the whole flow, how it works, and this will resonate a little bit to what we discussed here, because again, the whole flow is a bit similar. So just to give you like a jump start, we will deploy a callback contract, which will actually execute the selling transaction of an asset once price, which is determined by monitoring events in the liquidity pool, reaches a certain threshold. So we can go ahead and do that right now. So if you go ahead and Reactify app, as soon as you connect your wallet, you should land to this page, right? And I haven't done anything with this wallet here just yet. So you should see the same thing. Now we can go ahead and create, let's say, a new stop order. Let's say we want to secure our stable coin from the pegging. Let's say we have USDC in our EOA wallet. And then as soon as it, let's say, loses its peg by 5%, we want to convert that USDC into USDT. And as soon as this stop order is deployed, we won't need to constantly be monitoring, what's going on in the space. We might be, I don't know, be taking a walk, and if something happens, another drum in Web3, and somehow USDC depegs again, we are protected because the reactive contract will instantly sell USDC into USDT. So let's try and do that right now. Let's click on create new order, right? We will sell, let's say I have 5 USDC in my wallet. Let's say I'm just going to use 1 in this case. I'll be selling 1 USDC into 1 USDT if the peg drops by 5%, right? Pretty straightforward UI. As you can see, if price of USDC falls below this, we're going to be converting this to USDT. So now the whole flow begins. And in order to do this, just a note, you will need, obviously, Reactify is on base, so you'll need some Ethereum on base and some ERC to use. And also you'll need some reactive mainnet currency on Reactive Network. So first step is going to be to create the callback contract, the third contract out of the previous demo that will actually execute the selling transaction once the price falls below the peg. So let's try and do that. We click create contract, MetaMask pops up, and let's try and confirm the transaction. Okay. We now successfully deployed the callback contract. The next step is an approval of our USDC token for the callback contract to be spent should some disaster or another drama come up and USDC loses its peg. So let's confirm the approval. And now we're deploying a reactive contract that will monitor the price, in essence, monitoring the liquidity pool, and it will look at all the incoming transactions into the liquidity pool just to use as base for estimating the price of USDC. Now we're deploying a reactive contract. So it was a three-step process, right? Because we had to approve once and then deploy two contracts, the callback contract and the reactive contract. All right. Now we're funding the callback contract with some Ethereum. Why? Because imagine if the USDC actually loses its peg and the callback contract called back by Reactive Network needs to execute something, right? It has to have some gas inside. Otherwise, the selling transaction will fail because there will be no fuel. But luckily, in this UI, everything is streamlined, so you don't have to worry about manually funding the contract. And that's the cost of doing everything on chain. There needs to be a streak of different transactions for the whole system to work. As you can see right now, we are successfully creating a stop order where if USDC falls and loses its peg, we're going to be converting that into USDT, and we can be pretty, have some amount of peace of mind that at least in this case will be secure. But that actually works with any sort of ERC20. So if you're holding any ERC20s not on your centralized exchange, but on your EOA wallet, that will be handy for you. And the same goes for take profit orders as well. So basically, that's how it works. And obviously, since I don't expect the USDC to lose its peg by 5% in this demo, we did some transactions where the threshold was set to 0.001. And we actually simulated how one stablecoin is converted into other stablecoin upon that event. And I can show you how it looks like. So obviously, just like we did right now, we created a stop order in this transaction, but it's just going to be a pretty, plain base scan link. So there's nothing to see here. But then here's a transaction that did actually move the price below this 0.001 threshold. That was the transaction on base. And then what happened next was reactive contract executed the selling transaction. And in this case, DAI as a stablecoin got converted to USDC. So in this case, the system worked and it simulated the event of a stablecoin, the pegging. So this was pretty much all I had for this demo. Just want to know that we always looked at hooks and reactive contracts as something that can go really well together. Just like we discussed yesterday with one of the lead instructors at Atrium, reactive contracts can supercharge hooks. You can use reactive contracts to execute your hooks based on any on-chain event, any Oracle emitted event. You can use reactive contracts to act as cron event delivery, and you can then execute the hooks based on some time interval depending on what needs to be done. So there are a lot of different use cases. We have a few we're looking forward to seeing built, and we'll share that a bit later. But just generally, we want everybody to be as creative as possible, and at least check out the docs and have some time on your own with everything we have outlined here. We can be found on Telegram or Discord. Looking forward to chatting or discussing more. But anyhow, that's it on my side, guys. I really hope this was understandable. And yeah, looking forward to chatting more and seeing what innovative, unique, and interesting things can be built merging both technologies. So thank you very much. And yeah, looking forward to some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and pop some questions on the screen. I know that you mentioned you'll be discussing use cases another time, but we do have a use case question. Is there any case in building prediction markets?
I don't think we have something live yet. And to be honest with you, that's one of the areas where we would love to see reactive tech being involved in. So, right on top of my mind, let's say there's some real life event, I don't know, let's say a UFC fight, and there's an oracle which emits an event on chain saying that, I don't know, one guy won over the other. You could use a reactive contract to catch that event and then execute the automatic reward distribution to somebody who actually plays that bet in an on-chain prediction market. That's like my top of my head idea. But we don't have anything live just yet. And if you have some more ideas, or if you want to implement reactive tech in this subvertical, then that would be amazing to see.
Awesome.
Yeah. If I may add, I think like if you try to use poly markets right now, there's quite a number of clicks you need to do. You place a bet, and then hopefully you win, and if you win, you actually have to go in and claim it. Like it's completed, and then if you see on the front end, the particular sort of like question, yes or no, usually two things, right? It's get pushed down to the bottom, you have to find it, and then go in and see that, okay, I placed this, I want to withdraw, and withdraws into a wallet and so on. One of the biggest benefits that we have so far, like what Amelia is saying, like prediction market projects haven't really reached out to us, or there may be someone building in stealth, we don't know. But so far, as far as we understand, one of the use cases common in other use cases, but not yet people building on us, is actually the ability to just automatically distribute rewards. And that's something from a user experience perspective that's going to be very, very useful.
Awesome. And then this person also said logging underpriced events will be amazing, just for additional context. And then we have a question from Juan here. Are there plans to support fork testing and include the chain in Foundry?
That's a good question to our DevRel team. So if you go ahead on our socials, there's a developer-oriented Telegram group chat. Please join, and we'll get back to you with this ASAP.
Yeah. I think from a technical perspective, I wouldn't say anything is never. Are there right now sort of like any detailed plans about this? As far as I understand, I mean, again, I might be wrong, but I don't think it's something that you actively will see it. I think what we want to see also is there a demand? Is there someone asking us that, hey, can you have this so that we can do certain things? And the more people ask us, especially on the developer side, with certain demands, the higher up it will become a priority. So definitely, I would say Amelia's is pointing in the right direction. You go in there, and the more people ask about a similar thing, the more things will happen.
Perfect. All right, and we have another question here. This one's a little bit lengthy, but could you explain the synchronization? If an event is emitted, can the reactive contract respond in the same block? Could you go over the flow for a simple case for this?
So yeah, so the same block is going to be difficult because especially if it's a cross-chain, what's the word for that? If it's a cross-chain use case, then you have to receive a block from the origin chain. Then Reactive Network needs to execute an additional logic of your choice on Reactive Network, and our block time is around 7 seconds. And then it needs to execute the transaction on the destination blockchain. And that depends, the block time depends on the blockchain, right? Because you have Arbitrum with super fast block times, and you have some other slower chains. It depends. So the same block, I don't think that's possible. But our biggest goal is to never be later than the one block. The lower the latency, the better. But full disclosure, reactive is probably not the best solution for super high frequency use cases like arbitrage, millisecond trading, or something like that. So that comes at the cost of doing everything on chain. Because to be completely honest, supporting so many different blockchains with different block times, being aware of all the different states and all these different networks is already a huge challenge. So being able to catch a transaction, execute some logic, and then submit a new transaction or call back a different contract in the same block, I don't think that's feasible, at least for the short term.
If I may add to that as well, I think when we built this platform, our main use case is basically what are we building it for and what will it be used for, right? And how useful will we provide value to projects and businesses and developers building on this platform. Vast majority of use cases, no one is asking for super fast same block, because then there's more like high frequency trading is basically like trading bots, and it's not easy actually deploying such trading bots because they take a lot of data off chain and then come back on chain very quickly in milliseconds to respond to that. Because while blockchains can the block times can get shorter and shorter, right nowadays 200 milliseconds is like the holy grail. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to be 200 milliseconds soon. But trading bots go way faster than that. And from a blockchain infrastructure perspective, unless you're really doing that, vast majority of the time, you don't need it to be so fast, because you're going into mempools, going to different things that to sort of predict. And that means that the chance of things being wrong, in the sense that actually you see it and then you react on the same block, but actually it didn't happen, that chance gets higher. And in our use case, we want it to be for developers basically automating a vast majority of the business logic behind the scenes as much as possible. And if that's the case, it wouldn't be in the same block. It makes sense for it to kind of be the next block. And if the simple use case is the same block, I mean, on the same blockchain, reacting back on the same blockchain. And in that case, it makes sense for it to block after block after block. Even if it's multiple different blockchains trying to compete with each other, that's where some blockchains are very, very fast and some are very, really slow. If we are talking about a layer 1 talking to a layer 2, and things happen, sometimes it might be the one with the shorter block times. They may have already been for 3 or 4 blocks in before the other blockchain actually have the next block as well. So we have to synchronize all that in terms of the response. We'll be responding in the fastest next block, depending on which one it is.
Awesome. And then we have a question here. Do you have a projects repository on Reactive at the moment?
Projects. If you mean Reactive Network, then yes. There's a GitHub link. Go ahead on reactive.network. And then if you go, again, top of the page, there's the whole Reactive Network repo for everything you might need to get a hands on.
Perfect. I just want to make sure it's the GitHub link. I could drop this in the chat too for everyone. Or ecosystem.
There it is.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I will go ahead and share that in the chat. Awesome. And then any last questions from the audience before we
I think I
close it
saw
up?
someone who was asking. He did put a question,
Oh.
but he didn't pop up. He's like,
Oh,
how's it different
there we go.
having yes.
Got it. I
How's it
couldn't tell if that
different?
was a question personally, so perfect. Thank you for calling that out.
I
We can
presume
let's take that one.
it's a question. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very good question because it's like,
Yeah.
why don't we just, like right now we already have this boss, why don't we just deploy it? But that's the whole point, right? How many of this bots do you need to kind of run your business? You have a use case, even if it's a very simple use case, whether it's kind of what Amelia shared earlier in the demo. You want to put a stop order, and you're providing a service to users. Why do they need stop orders? Because most platforms organically, they don't really have a very good function right now. They can probably do stop loss. They can't do take profit. And take profit is very difficult. If I recall correctly, on Uniswap, for example, take profit is always the next boundary that's very difficult to break into. How many of these bots do you need? And each time you need to update your platform, how many of these bots do you need to change? And because these bots, they're not on chain, they're off chain. They're listening, they're tapping onto a node and then saying that, hey, is this thing happening? If this thing happens, pull everything off. Our whole objective is to streamline the whole thing. You just need to deploy. The smart contracts are written in Solidity, and then we are written in Solidity. We are on chain, they are on chain, and the whole thing just connects that way. It means that when you need to change functionalities, you don't change 5 things every time. You just change one thing. You change the reactive smart contracts right in the middle, and the whole thing can be updated very quickly. That basically is the difference between us and kind of having run multiple bots, multiple tech infrastructure. Once we streamline the whole thing, it enables better functionalities. You want to build new functions, that's where you can build it in to your smart contracts as well.
Awesome. And then there is this question, continuing from their previous question on synchronization.
So perhaps I can answer this, and if Amelia's have additional points, he can add as well. So can multiple contracts reacting to, well, for example, the same events create some inconsistency? So how we work is that a series of smart contracts, reactive contracts, they form what we call RVM. It's a reactive virtual machine. One use case, one RVM. They don't interfere with other RVMs. So within your use cases, the multiple contracts will not basically cause the inconsistent logic behind it. But if you say in terms of your events, you spot this event and your code says that, okay, I spot this, my logic says that I need to say buy or sell or something in the hope of making a profit, in the hope of preventing loss or different things. It doesn't change the fact that other people might be selling more than you expected or less than you expected, and it caused your profit to not be what you expect. That's consistent even for bots, it's consistent for other use cases. And of course, that part is out of your control, you can't do it. But within event logic, as long as it's within a RVM, they don't interfere with other people's RVM and it doesn't change. So that's basically how we structure it in such a way as to prevent inconsistency. Not sure if Emilius have things to add.
No, exactly. And then, just want to add that if, some event is too late, and then the reactive contract reacts too late to some event that has already been, the state has changed, and your transaction for, what I'm trying to say is that the transaction that can cause some inconsistency will just be reverted.
Got it. Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and just jump this on the screen. And last call for questions in the chat. Going once. All right. I'll just double check on Twitter and make sure that we're not getting any questions on there as well. But otherwise, as we're winding down the session, I know we covered a lot of resources today, but Oh, we got one. If this is good to ask, or if you did want to address this one, it's regarding a Bing X exchange.
I mean, it has nothing to do with the hackathon, but I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind
Sure.
addressing it.
Sure.
It's something we announced it as. Actually, they've been discussing with us. They're like, hey, liquidity is poor, and we already provide liquidity. Liquidity is poor means that there's no buy order, or like it's got to do with their users, got nothing to do with our users. So I think without sort of saying too much about what they say, because I can't say what they say. At the end of the day, it's commercial contract, so that is where the partnership stopped. But is there any future new partnerships coming? Again, if you're talking about other exchanges, I cannot mention about our dealings with other exchanges because they are all governed by NDAs. So when it comes, it happens. I think for most exchanges right now, very broadly, again, I'm not naming anyone because I'm not supposed to. Right now, most exchanges, they're just looking at market conditions as well. When they list something, it has to be profitable for them. And at the end of the day, I would say that things are profitable when the market is moving. And right now, the market is in a kind of risk-off environment. And so I would say that things that are token related, it happens when exchanges are ready to move forward.
Awesome. Thank you for addressing. Perfect. So we'll take that one as the last question. Thank you for your transparency. I know that was not part of Hackathon, but still important to address. And they said thanks for answering as well. So as we're closing the session, are there any last resources you'd like to point to, or I know you mentioned there's a Telegram chat for developers. Any ways for those who are listening in the audience to stay in touch?
Yeah, anything really works. We'll be on Atrium's Discord. We have Telegram, all sorts of socials, developer focused and retail focused. You can pop in anywhere, and we'll send you the right people. Generally, just looking forward to getting people get hands-on, ask questions, give us some feedback. This is new tech; nothing like that has been built before. In fact, it has been consensus, just a year ago, that there is no decentralized, events-driven, if this and that network on chain. Now it is, and that's why we're really excited to see what developers can come up with, what ideas they have, and how can reactive contracts and hooks merge together, bringing some new so long-awaited innovation to DeFi and Web3. And Unichain specifically. So very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, amazing. And I know we did have a lot of folks in the audience that were listening from UHI 8. And I do know that you will be holding a workshop for those in the UHI cohort on February the 17th. So very, very excited for that. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and wrap up this session. So thank you, Ronkai. Thank you, Emilius, for presenting. And thanks for everyone in the audience for tuning in, those in UHI 8. And if you are not in this current cohort, we do have applications open for UHI 9. You can access that on atrium.academy/Uniswap. But very, very excited to see what everyone builds with Reactive for this cohort, and looking forward to the next workshop. So thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your days, guys. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.